Okay, so that was very complicated and quite difficult, and and made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I kind of showed you how I try to overcome those mistakes, right? So what I'm going to do now is hopefully do the same thing and maybe add in one more complexity and generate a list, same kind of list, um, and but hopefully without all of the mistakes, so that you have at least one summary video where what does it look like from beginning to end. Let's act as if we're starting all over. So let's, set directory to the notebook directory. All right, got that. And then we need to, let's say what we want to do is create a table. First column, ID. Second column, name. Third column, death date. Fourth column, all the places of stay of that narrator. So 4 columns. Okay, so we probably need 3 files. Well, we need the files with the initial IDs in them. Remember, the IDs of the people that you guys found that fit the criteria of being fifth of dying between the year 50 and 120 and having stayed in the city of Mecca at least once. Um, so we need that file with just the IDs of them. Um, Second thing that we need is we need the names file, right? The file that correlates the ID with the names. We need the file that correlates the ID with the death date, which also happens to be the file that correlates the ID with the places of stay that each narrator stayed in, right? Okay, so let's import those. So into IDs, I want to import that file that you guys got for me. But let's say that some of you gave me not just the IDs, but the IDs and the names. So this might be the starting point for some of you, which actually, which actually is not correct because what I wanted is just the IDs. I did not want the names. I didn't want any other information. But let's just say that's the case. Okay. So yeah, so this gives me the ID, the death date, and the places of stay. But I don't want all of that. I only want the IDs. How do I get rid of that? Well, I say the IDs only, all rows, first column only, right? So what's the length of this? For whatever reason, oh, got an extra character in there. It's late. 105. Okay, so we got the IDs. Let's get the names. Names equals import. I'm trying to do this a little bit fast because this ID full name, name full name, gen. And death and stay. Let's call it death stay equals import. Ah, why does that go away? Don't be so finicky. Come on, man. Come on, man. What's going on? I think I know. I just gotta scroll up, I bet. Okay, what do we want? Death stay, because that has the death date and the stay. Right? That's what we want. So we got the IDs, we got the names, we got the death stay, we got all the information that we need in order to construct our table with ID, name, death date, and places of stay, right? So here I'm just putting two commands on one line, having it execute both. And let's just see whether it worked. Names. Okay, that looks perfectly fine. Death stay. And that looks perfectly fine, right? Okay, so let's get to work. So let's put the contents of our table into B. And we go the table command. And let's go ahead and do open and close brackets because we know eventually we're going to have to close whatever bracket we open. And let's go ahead and do our iterator. The iterator is going to be, let's call it I, but it can be called anything. Let's call it X, right? X. X is what we're calling the iterator. And the first number we want the iterator to start from is 1. And we want it to go to the length of, and I'm not going to make the same mistake again, the length of IDs, right? And we want to iterate by 1, increment by 1 every single time. And then let's close that curly Q. And then let's do our coding. Let's create some space so we kind of know where we are. All right. Okay, what are we going to do? The first thing we want to do is get the name, right? So let's call it temp name equals select from, where do we find that name? We find that name in the names directory. Hashtag where, what column do we want to search on? We want to search on the first column where it equals what? It equals the content of the first element in ID all the way through the last element of ID. So that's what it's going to look like. And colon. So we want temp name to do that. We want temp death to select from death stay where the first column equals the first element or whatever element that I is iterating at the moment. Okay, everything's dandy. Okay. By doing that, temp death has both the death stay and the death date and the stay. Okay, there is one potential roadblock here, but let's see whether or not it actually happens. All right. So now we have like everything. Now we are going to populate the table. And what are we going to populate it with? Well, the first thing that we want is we want the ID, right? So that's going to be the content of the iterated ID. The second thing we want is temp name, which is going to be the third element of every single row. Right? And then the third thing is we want the death date, which is going to be the second element of every single row. And then the fourth thing we want is the places of stay, which is going to be the third element, I think. I think it's going to be the third element. I'm not sure. No. So in temp depth, it's going to be 1, 3. I don't know if this is going to work. The reason why I hesitate is because I'm not quite sure how death stay is. Oh yeah, it is not. It is not correctly structured. So I know that I'm going to have a problem, but let's just try it out and see what happens. All right. So that's how I want it to populate. One row, one element, second element, third element, fourth element. What you need to do is you need to make sure you separate the two curly bracket elements, right? The first set of curly bracket elements is what you're populating with, and the second set of curly bracket elements in a table command is how you're iterating. Okay. Oh, here's a mistake already. So my iterator was X. So these iterators should be X. And it is because out of habit, I always put I. That's what I did. All right. So I predict one of two things are going to happen. The first thing that might happen is it might do everything correctly. And it'll give me all of the places of stay in that fourth column. The second thing it might happen is it'll work, but it'll only give me the third element of that. It'll only give me the first place of stay, and not all of them. So the problem is this: like if we look at 40010 up here, and the results of our importation of DebtStay of the ID DebtStay file, we see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4. So this list is composed of 5 parts, and if I'm correct, I mean it could very well be that it'll only give me Basra and not give me Egypt, Ray, and Tabaristan. All right, but let's see. All right, now let's monitor this, right? We want to monitor this. We want to see the iterator as it is iterating. So, and what do we want to watch? We want to watch the X. Okay, it's iterating properly. Should go to 105. Okay. And what happened was it did not give me all of the cities. So how do I change that? Like it's only giving me one city per. I mean, if we want, let's display it in a much more user-friendly way. Let's display it as a table, right? If we display it as a table, what do we find? We're finding only one city. When it should probably be the case that at least some of these should have multiple cities. So how do we change this? So I think what may solve the problem is if we did this, right? So give me not just the third column of that row, but all the columns from 3 till the end. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think let's see. Let's see if it works, man. Let's see if it works. Okay, we got our 105 up. It worked. It worked. All right. It worked beautifully. And let's do table form, and you see it. You see the multiple cities. Okay. Like if we were to look at it in column form, maybe that'll help better. Column B. You kind of see it. And I'll tell you why it's perfect. It's perfect because, first of all, the dimensions should be 105 by 4. Let's see whether that is in fact the case. Dimensions of B, right? That's what I call it. The number of elements should be 4 times 105, which is 420. Yeah, okay. And let's say I wanted I want to see how this is going to work. So if I do, let's say I wanted to see the places of stay of that first narrator, then if I do B 1 through 4, it should give me multiple places of stay, right? And that's kind of like here, you kind of see how having some structure within the list actually helps you because it's very well organized. You know that 105 rows, every single row has some place of stay. And even if it's multiple places of stay, if you look in that fourth column, you're going to get all of the places of stay, right? Because it's a sublist. All right. So that kind of gives you a lot to work with. The only thing that I want to make sure that you keep track of is that when you import the IDs, right, which are going to be the file that you generated when you did that, fancy select statement or a series of fancy select statements, that you make sure that the IDs do not themselves each have, every single ID does not have a curly bracket. If it does, you have to flatten it and make it 100% flattened. So keep that in mind. Another thing that's a little bit confusing that we didn't do explicitly is that whenever there are two things I want to talk about. One is it doesn't have to be the case, for instance, that when you do any kind of select statement, that after the equal sign or the greater than sign or the less than sign or whatever other signs there are other signs that you could probably use, that you have to put in the thing that you're searching for yourself, like Kufa or 11013. No, what you can do instead is put its location in a list. And the location in a list using the double bracket is the same thing as the content, right? So they are interchangeable in Mathematica's mind. So, and that's something that I actually didn't train you on or tell you about. Perhaps I should have. So let's just take a look. I just want you to see this. So let's take, we want to find the information about the name that we have from the names file, from the names variable for 19934, which is, you know, the 105th, the 105th thing. So we want to select from names where hashtag the first column equals not 19934, but B 105 1, and it should work. It should give me that information, right? So just keep that in mind. And another thing that you want to keep in mind is, let's go back and take a look at the table. So this might be confusing, like this temp name and temp date death. And why is it the case that I don't use the iterator here? And the reason why I don't use the iterator is because every single time this iterator changes and you put something that is the result of the select statement into this temp name, it automatically empties the previous contents of that select name and puts new content, the new content in. And the same thing happens with temp death. So it's not like it adds to the contents of that. It completely replaces it, so that every single time temp name is only going to have one row of information. And what you are doing here is you are selecting from that row, I just want the third element, which happens to be that full name. And from temp death, I just want that second element, which happens to be the death date. And from temp death, I just want all columns, the third column till the end, how many ever columns there are, right? Because it only has one row of information every single time. So the iteration happens here, and the old information gets obliterated by the results of every single iterated select statement every single time. Now we keep the iterator here because that's kind of like the tracking. We are going through the IDs one by one, and there are 105 such IDs, and that's what we're going by, and that's the contents of that is what we need in that first field, in that first column. I hope that explains things. Goodbye.